Okay. How hard you want? I mean, not criminal science.
Not if I can double it.
You send it to my email.
Hello everyone, once again, if you're here for a public forum, the signups are out there in the back. I call this meeting to order at 6:45 p.m. We got a roll call. Senator Adam, Senator Ben Cohen,
Here.
Senator Betancourt, Senator Briceño,
Here.
Senator Carlton Crew,
Here.
Senator Sernod, Senator Chowan,
Here.
Senator Cuneo,
Here.
Senator Funk, Senator Hernandez, Senator Carnes-Weiner, Senator Camis, Senator Mello, Senator Nagpal,
Here.
Senator Ng,
Here.
Senator Nguyen,
Here.
Senator Nellis,
Here.
Senator Palmerin,
Here.
Senator Perez, Senator Solari, Senator Solomon,
Here.
Senator Takamichi,
Here.
Senator Tubian,
Here.
Senator Ribe.
Here.
Moving on to excuse absences, we have Alex Funk for the entire meeting. The floor is now open. Senator Nellis.
Motion to add Senator Solari to excuse absences till 7:15.
There's a motion to add Senator Solari until 7:15. Is there a second? Second, Senator Corneo. No discussion. Senator Nagpal.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there objection to call the question?
Consent.
Is there objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. The floor is still open. Senator Nellis. Senator Hernandez. There's a motion to vote on approve excuse absences. Is there a second? Second, Senator Chowan. We're on discussion. Senator Ben Cohen.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there objection to call the question?
Consent.
Is there objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. Moving on to acceptance of proxies. The floor is now open. Senator Chowan.
Motion to add Kevin Vidiliar as a proxy for Carlos Sinatra and
There's a motion to add Kevin Mandeliar for Senator Sinoff for the entire meeting. Is there a second? Senator Corneo. No discussion. Senator Ribe.
Motion.
Call the question. Question has been called. Is there objection to call the question?
Consent.
Is there objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. Senator Corneo.
Motion to add Chicago as Senator proxy.
There's a motion to add Raquel Amario for Senator Mello. Is there a second? Second by Senator Cornelis. We're on discussion. Senator Ben Cohen.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there an objection to call the question?
Consent.
Is there an objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. Senator Nguyen.
Motion to add Amy Wang as a proxy for Senator Amy Wang until 7:15 p.m.
There's a motion to add Amy Wang for Senator Nguyen after 7:15 p.m. Is there a second? Second by Senator Takamichi. We're on discussion. Senator Chowan.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there an objection to call the question?
Consent.
Is there an objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. Senator Ben Cohen.
Motion to add Dylan Fussman as a proxy for Senator Thomas.
There's a motion to add Dylan Fussman for Senator Thomas for the entire meeting. Is there a second? Second by Senator Proxy Rose. We're on discussion. Senator Chowan.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there an objection to call the question?
Consent.
Is there an objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. Senator Nguyen.
Motion to add Eric Moon as a proxy for Senator Betancourt.
There's a motion to add Eric Nguyen for Senator Betancourt. Is there a second? Second by Senator Chowan. We're in discussion. Senator Nellis.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there an objection to call the question?
Consent.
Is there an objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. Floor is still open. Senator Uribe.
Motion to add Calvin as a proxy for Senator Perez.
There's a motion to add Kelvin
Huerta.
as a proxy for Senator Perez. Is there a second? Second, Senator Chowan. We're in a discussion. Senator Corneo.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there an objection to call the question?
Consent.
Is there an objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. Senator Proxy Rose.
I motion to vote on approve all proxies.
There's a motion to vote on approved proxies. Is there a second? Second, Senator Nagpal. On discussion. Senator Tubian.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there an objection to call the question?
Consent.
Is there an objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. Proxies may now join us at the table. Moving on, we have external reports. Chancellor's representative. UCPD representative.
Excellent. Good evening. My name is Matt Bowman. I'm acting lieutenant with the University Police Department. I've been with UCPD for just over 20 years. So I'm excited to be here. It's certainly not my first Senate meeting, but it is certainly with this group. So I've been remiss in letting it get this far in the quarter before I came to say hello, but I'm your community resource officer as well. So my experience, it is a lot easier to call a friend to ask a question. I'm Matt. I'm in the email, I'm on the phone list. If you email back and forth, you have my cell phone number. So I really am a person who's very easy to get a hold of. And I'm here to answer your questions and be that connection between the police department and the students.
Thank you. Any questions? Proxy Rose?
So I've noticed a couple of your officers ticketing people riding electric scooters. I just wanted to know where exactly it was publicized that riding electric scooters on campus is prohibited.
Sure, so it actually violates the California Vehicle Code. According to the statewide laws, it essentially is a car, and the same as we wouldn't accept a car being driven on the bike paths or on our walkways on campus, the same law applies to the scooters. It's of course not in Bird or Lime or any other private business's interest to educate the public on that. In an effort to try and be proactive, the campus, in addition to recognizing the vehicle code as making it unlawful, they also passed an interim policy that said they're not to be parked on any campus property or charged in or about any university building, because the batteries in them tend to be the type that catch on fire, and we would hate for one of our multi-million-dollar facilities to come to a disastrous end for convenience like that. Though I wasn't a part of the education process, I was. It's been told me on a number of occasions that they did emails. Dr. Amistad sent a letter. We are ramping up our publicity campaign. Frankly, Bird and Lime arrived before we were able to get everything in place that we had anticipated. They slipped in their rollout. Actually just ahead of this community service district requesting that they not. So it hasn't been a cooperative relationship. I can tell you that there are signs that have been ordered to be placed at the 13 entrance points from Isla Vista into campus to help educate as a real reminder. I've been working with my officers to remind them we want to have an education period before we go to strict enforcement. Officers' discretion is at their level though, so for us to dictate, well, I don't have the ability as a police administrator to take away potentially their authority to issue a citation, though even we recommend, and the campus vibe is to kind of let this settle down a bit. We respond to complaints on a regular basis. Being that they are not allowed to be parked on campus, we have chosen not to go out and collect every single one that we can find, because that again isn't in the spirit of what obviously the students who are bringing them on campus are intending to do. So we are only responding on a complaint basis. So if somebody calls and says, hey, this is blocking a handicap ramp. The first Bird that was impounded, as a matter of fact, was parked in the handicap parking stall at the University Police Department. So we decided that was a good place to start, because that was obviously somebody who was not caring about anyone else but themselves and not even trying to comport with anything. That answers your question.
Thank you, Ayala.
Senator Nellis.
So I just want to offer a trigger warning to everyone. I'm going to be asking a question about sexual assault and sexual harassment policies. So I don't know how in depth we'll go into the subject, but there's that trigger warning. My question to you: recently, Students Against Sexual Assault published a survey that was put on by a group of UCSB students that basically was just inquiring about experiences regarding sexual assault and harassment. And one of the questions asks, or there's an option to basically report if you went to seek any resources on or off campus. And one of them was UCPD, and out of the 7 who chose to go to UCPD, only 2 of them found the resource actually helpful for them. Do you have any ideas of why that might be? Or like, can you maybe elaborate or talk a little bit on that and talk about what kind of process that is?
Sure. Let me start by, before the survey was put out, we became aware of Students Against Sexual Assault, SASA, and I got to know Emily. We exchanged emails regularly. We took as many from their group out to breakfast with our interpersonal violence investigators and some of our other detectives that specialize in this to create an opportunity to get to know each other. So again, it was a conversation with Emily and Matt as opposed to SASA person and police person, awkward, right? They did their survey, and I haven't had the opportunity to go through it in great detail. I wasn't aware of the statistic you just quoted. Sexual assault is such a personal and intimate topic. The reality is it's almost impossible to know what each individual's expectation was and how that compared to the realities of the services offered through the police department. I can tell you the University Police Department have an extreme amount of training far above the industry standard. We are interpersonal violence investigators to a great extent, even though that's a specialty unit that we provide. We spent and put all of our officers through trauma-informed sexual assault interviewing, and that really takes a look at the science of what happens to a person when they experience a tragedy or a trauma, because it in some ways scrambles the memory of that. So whereas traditional thinking was, well, if you can't tell me what happened first and then second and then third, you must be either lying or it's false. The science totally blows that out of the water. So all of our officers are familiar with the effects around that. Not knowing who they are and not knowing what the issues were, I'm in a poor position to be able to speak to it, but I can tell you that it is absolutely our top priority to take care of survivors in those things, and then identify a potential suspect, and then hold them accountable. That very much is to the core of what UCPD's mission and vision around those types of calls comes from.
Thank you. Sarah Cleo.
So I have a question on policies regarding racial profiling and whether someone feels like you're being racial profiling. I just wanted to know what your policies were on that.
Sure. So it's totally inappropriate for us to make any disparaging decision based on anybody's race, ethnicity, sex, gender, preference. I can tell you I work with a consummate professional crew at UCPD. We have a zero tolerance to anyone that is identified in the organization as even displaying that type of behavior in the workplace. The department has engaged in a lot of training in this area as well. I'm a certified instructor on implicit bias, so I'm capable of training other police officers. Actually, a good friend of mine, Gary Gaston, is at that same training today. We put everybody through an 8-hour implicit bias training brought in by an expert. Actually, the person that taught me was so powerful, I said, regardless of the extent of my ability to be able to do it, we brought her down, and she was able to share with 100% of our sworn officers her insight and experiences, which was very well received. Not that I couldn't have done a good job, I just swung away at it, but she really was the expert. We engaged in a lot of workshops over the last several years with associated students, with Black Studies, with Marisol and I worked on events, bringing speakers to the campus and engaging law enforcement in the conversation. So certainly not new to the topic, one that we, again, hold very dear and important because our campus is a very diverse population. We respect that. We want that to be the case and flourish, and we're just lucky enough to be stewards within it. And to that extent, we have to treat everybody the same and not tolerate that sort of behavior.
Follow-up question. Where, if students feel like they were racially profiled, is there a place or a process that they can go to?
Certainly. So the department has a very robust citizens complaint procedure. It can be done online, it can be done over the phone, it can be done in person, it can be done anonymously. The link on the website that is present for that goes directly to the chief of police, so it doesn't get filtered anywhere else. Nobody's trying to do anything with it. It's a direct line to the man himself. In addition to that, there's the external resources. The whistleblower is a potential, and Title IX on campus would be the two subject matter experts I would refer somebody to.
Senator Adam.
Hi Matt, thank you for coming tonight. I was wondering, for the Halloween parking restrictions, the blocks that are going to be allowed exit but not re-entry of cars, like Salvador Tarde, I know is one of them. How is that going to work, and is there a specific time that that's going to be in effect?
Sure. So this is a tough question because it's all the Sheriff's Department operation,
Okay.
and I can't speak on behalf of their organization. I can tell you historically what I've seen, and my understanding is it'll be very similar to what we saw at Deltopia the last year is our most recent example, and then Halloween the year before. They publish times of setting barricades up, and those have traditionally been fairly soft. So where they may say 6 p.m. you can, well, they'll go up at like 8 or 9 o'clock. Once they're up, though, cars are allowed to leave if they are able to travel safely, at safe speed, but they're not allowed re-entry until the barricades go down. I've seen that happen as quick as 1 o'clock in the morning. I've seen them up until like 3. Those were in the busier years. So my guess is probably go up pretty late and come down pretty early, if I were to guess, though I can't tell them.
Thank you. I yield.
Senator Caneo.
So I know that recently the ID Field Patrol has been facing budget cuts. What are your opinions on how this could affect students living in ID?
Sure. So again, this is beyond my control. I can't speak on behalf of the Sheriff's Department. I know it is, as one human being talking to another human being, it's harder to get the same work done with less resources. If 4 of us were going to carry the tables out of here, and then one of them wasn't allowed to participate, 3 of us had to carry the tables out. That's going to be harder work for the 3. I know that the sheriff, I heard him speak recently that Isla Vista is a priority for the Sheriff's Department, but he does have budget constraints, not only just for his department, but the county at all, is my understanding. Again, totally inappropriate for me to speak on it. So it's just my opinion. I know that they have the community resource deputy in James McCarroll. That was an ad, and that's one that they continue to fight for. I can tell you that the University Police Department is still continuing to fulfill its commitments to the Isla Vista Foot Patrol with our staffing. So we've seen no cut in that, and in fact, we've agreed, we are on the verge of signing a memorandum of understanding with the Community Service District to provide an additional sexual assault or interpersonal violence investigator just to work in Isla Vista to help the survivors in that community get better law enforcement service, maybe bring our number up a little bit with quicker, more responsive results. Tough question for me because it's so far out of my.
Senator Eve.
For like the top of your head and where you can look right now, can you like give us a list of trainings that UCPD does and like what the trainings that you have done so far in the beginning of this academic year? Like, yeah.
Sure. So right now we have every female member sworn and a couple of female staff members at a Women in Law Enforcement Leadership Conference. They just got back today. We have sent officers to Field Training Officer School. So that's the training we sent to take a police officer to one that can train a civilian who's just graduated the police academy to become a police officer. So we've sent people to that training. Gary Gaston is a train the trainer. So again, that's somebody who learns how to become a presenter to present on implicit bias and how it relates to law enforcement decision making. Monday, I'm going to the management version of that same class. So I'm a certified trainer to officers, but I haven't seen the executive presentation, so I'm going to Long Beach for that. We've had some range training. We've had transition in our range staff, so proficiency with firearms is a important thing if we have ever called to use them. And thankfully, in the history of the department, we've never had an officer involved shooting. So our track record is good. I'll knock on some wood for that. We've sent people for that. Those are the ones that just come off the top of my head. But because we have 45 sworn police officers, the comings and goings of all of them to the trainings they attend is difficult for one person to try and regurgitate.
And then follow-up question. Do you know, from your understanding, has the entire UCPD ever gone a safe zone training through the RCSGD, which is just talking about queer and transness?
Sure.
Yeah.
So that opens up the question in my opinion. So I answered just at the start of the quarter, which is September.
Yeah.
So we do an annual training. This year we did it right immediately following commencement, so the following 2 weeks. We bring in all the Isla Vista Foot Patrol people, and half the department attends 40 hours or about 45 hours of training, while the other half provides police services, and then we flip-flop. So everybody gets it. And we always have a 2 and 3 hour block to LGBTQ who come in and present. So we've received the safe zone training from current director, the previous director. Over the past, say, 6-8 years, we've had that. consistently. We had a block in there about working with people with suicidal ideation, helping to identify maybe a medical crisis versus maybe a tragic or violent one, especially focusing on de-escalation of the situation. In that we had our annual driving training, we had our annual course option simulators. So we go into a room about this size with a big screen on it. They show a scenario of something occurring, and the officers have laser devices on them to help, like if they spray pepper spray, it sprays on the screen and captures where it is, to help run through those types of scenario with as much stress as able to be on it. It actually has a little paintball gun with a little remote controller guy in the back uses. So if we step out of cover, we can get shot, as an example. So just tons of, as an example, so I was asked, we're mandated every 2 years by the state of California to have 24 hours training each of us. I randomly selected somebody, Detective Colina Avila. She had 248 hours, just to give some kind of a semblance, so more than 10 times what the state mandate was. This kind of the level at which we train here.
Any more questions? Senator Rebate?
Sorry. And then they can only ask so many follow-up questions. So, is there any way, like, if students wanted to, we can sit in on those trainings and like see how those trainings are facilitated? That way we can offer a student perspective. Is that like a thing that UCPD is allowing or has allowed? And if so, who can we contact?
Sure, so great question. Actually, we incorporate our community service officers in quite a bit of our training. So that's our student interface. We currently have about 53 student employees that are part-time employees of the police department. So they get included. We have put out the offer to a number of groups who've had this request in the past, and we've always been willing to accommodate and actually haven't had any take us up on it yet. It would depend on the training, because some training's value comes in the fact that the trust in the room is present. And so in order to get an honest conversation, it's going to be tough with an outsider, not part of the law enforcement family in there. But we could certainly talk about that. I do that.
Do you? Yes. Any more questions? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity. Have a great rest of the quarter.
Motion to put in the minutes that Sergeant Matt Bowman spoke during public forum.
There's a motion to put in the minutes that Sergeant Matt Bowman spoke during public forum. Is there a second? Senator Chawan around discussion. Senator Nguyen.
Call a question.
The question has been called. Is there an objection to call the question?
Consent.
Is there an objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. Okay. Now we have DSA representative. UC Governance Board, not here. IVCSD, not here. New business, there is none. Public forum. Meet with hair.
Pardon us if there's not enough copies. Like, yeah, we made about like 22. I think there's. Hey y'all, my name's Amel. I'm Leslie, and we're both from Mujer. Yeah, we're here on behalf of Mujer. We wanted to ask for a schedule for the Dia de los Muertos event, which is November 1st from 4 to 7 at the SIB. This is the 4th annual Dia de los Muertos event that we have. Yeah, so it's a collaboration between several student organizations, including Mujer, and Ideas, Videota Alpha, and also the Department of Chicano Studies, EOP, the Latinx UCSB Networking Association, and Undocumented Student Services. And Dia de los Muertos is a big tradition in the Latinx community. And so it's, and in the past the event has been really successful, and we've had over 300 people come to the event. And yeah, so we're requesting $750 from AS, and that's for the performances that we're gonna have at the event. And yeah, so it would mean a lot. And along with the performances, we're gonna have music, there's gonna be free food. We're gonna have pupusas, tamales, all that kinds of stuff, and we're also gonna have an art auction, and the money for that is gonna go to the Dream Scholars Scholarship. And yeah, do y'all have any other questions or concerns that we could answer?
Trixie Rose.
Point of information. So I already came and gave a great presentation to F&B. There was just a little bit of complication about where the funding request is coming from. That's why we asked them to come to Big Senate.
Senator Nellis.
Point of information, how would one do a spontaneous financial motion? And when is that appropriate to do, to fund an event?
Yeah, Marcelo.
So as was just said, since it was taken up by one of your standing committees, and if it was voted upon there, or whatever decision finance and business did or didn't do, it would be reflected in minutes. And so the Senate would actually need to go into minutes and modify those and override whatever decision finance and business did or did not do, or modify. I'm not sure, I haven't read the minutes from finance and business if they're available. But that's what would need to happen since the presentation went there first.
What information? Couldn't we just motion to allocate the money from all OSL? Because we allocated money in the past from Senate allocated. And we decided to take it on.
In the minutes, they were tabled indefinitely. So could we extract it out of the minutes?
They were tabled indefinitely.
So that just.
It was a totally different group. So they came as the AP that would be definitely on the parents coming. Same thing, but different. Now it's a student group.
Okay. Yes, Marcel.
What's the question?
So they were tabled indefinitely during the finance and business meeting on Monday.
Yeah. If something is tabled indefinitely, it cannot be taken out.
It cannot be extracted.
Whatever the
to the chair, the matter would have to be heard differently than it was heard in finance and business. So so you wouldn't go back into minutes of finance and business because you can't take something up off the table that was tabled indefinitely. But a new motion can be made at this table, with Senate, that's not relative to the decision in finance and business.
Whatever information.
Okay, so I believe that is a spontaneous financial motion which requires 2/3.
If that's the option, yes, but just to caution the chair, it would be important to read why they were tabled indefinitely. And if conditions have changed or if things are different than they were on Monday.
Point of information, I was proxying at that meeting, and basically the discrepancy was that originally the group had come as EOP, which is a department, and so we cannot fund the department. So we recommended that they come back to Senate and come as a student org, which is what they were doing. So it's totally separate from what they came as. And so from what I understood you say, we could just motion a new motion because it's a different group coming on.
So for the chair, it would be important to, I guess, take a look at the proposal and it be couched differently or defined differently than it was in the way it was presented in finance and business. Then it would be a whole other different.
Would this motion take place during immediate consideration?
Well, that's the tricky part about this happening here.
I know.
Because you all prescribed for yourselves that you were not going to be taking any action this evening. You prescribed that this would be a meeting with no action items. So that's the issue you have to reconcile at this point. Because you would have to change your own resolution. I guess you'd have to change your own resolution, which we're intending to do today. Or if there's an opportunity to send this back to finance and business, then the entities could go, the student org could go back to finance and business and take it up there. The only other option would be coming to another one of your standing meetings, but It wouldn't be done until it was ratified by Senate.
Okay. Senator Cornell.
How are you?
Senator Solomon.
I believe in the resolution it states that all like financial aspects of the association will continue as normal. So like everything upstairs, requisition forms, because the resolution didn't want to burden people's like financial like boards running properly. So I feel like this falls under that. And even if finance or business fell on Tuesday, we probably would have kept that meeting because people like need their events to occur. And the reason why we didn't want to table this to the next finance and business meeting is because the event is happening on November 1st.
So I believe every motion is up to the, what I'm going to say is that the resolution is up to the Senate's discretion to act upon because it's a vote, obviously. So based on your interpretation of the resolution, whether or not we should have a vote on this is up to all of you. Yes, Priscilla?
Just one other piece is that you have to, one would need to define which part of the resolution you're in agreement with or disagreement with, and really introduce a new resolution about just the Senate's agenda. Because it wasn't about the financials, it's the section where in the last resolution, the Senate prescribed for itself that it would only take up minutes and it would only take up public forum, public forum and minutes. I think that's what it says. So you might want to call up the resolution on the screen.
Do we have any questions for our speakers? Senator Chuan?
Where is this about?
Senator Takichi?
How many what's your expected head count for the event?
We have over 300 or more.
300 or more.
Yield?
I yield.
Any more questions for our speakers? Thank you.
Thank you.
For your information, do you all want the resolution? Or yes?
Next we have Mayela.
Hello everyone. 4.0 gang is, I have no clue where it is. Falling behind on everything. But anyways, as you may know, the ASME 5399 strikes have been going on since yesterday. We finished today at 5 p.m. We are happening again tomorrow from technically since 4:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. So if you know any student workers that have walked out during this strike, please guide them to the Office of the Student Advocate. Grecia's email is sad@as.ucsb.edu. Also, y'all passed 3 resolutions last week. I hope that y'all are able and willing to do more than share something on Facebook and social media and add the little cute filter on your profile picture. So I hope to see you all tomorrow. So yeah, I'm open to questions.
Any questions? Senator Mayo?
I believe there's a specific time now when the students that are encouraged. Do you know what time it is?
I mean, we start, the volunteering shifts start at 4:30, but the strikes start at 5 a.m. and they go all the way to 5 p.m. So students are welcome to come at any time.
So correct me if I'm wrong, are they encouraging students to come at 1? Is that like when the big strike is going?
So there's 2 big ones. There's one around like 6 a.m. and one that starts around like 12:15ish because usually there's speakers and then we go on to the walking demonstration. But I mean, y'all are encouraged to come at any time. Those are just the biggest ones. There's also one that starts around like 10ish, but that one's usually smaller.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Yaika.
Never much of these reports, but I'm always so I'm here to talk to you. Because that's something we do. I just wanted to remind you all about the Halloween restrictions because I talked about it a couple weeks ago, but I wanted to have a refresh as this weekend is coming up. We have been distributing postcards. I don't know if you've gotten one with the Loving Community bags yet, but we're like almost halfway done with IV, and we've been prioritizing DP, Salvo, and Trigo so that those bags will get, or those streets will get the postcards first. But I wanted to just read off the information that's on the postcards just so everyone remembers. There are going to be surveillance cameras set up on DP and Pardal and Barcadell Del Mar to be used by the Ivy Foot Patrol. No cars will be towed on DP or Sabado, but it is strongly encouraged if cars are moved. And vehicle access to DP and Sabado will be restricted on October 26th, 27th, and 31st, and you will not be able to re-enter with the vehicle once you leave if the barriers are still up. Parking restrictions will be implemented on Friday, the 26th, 27th, and 31st, and cars parked in 6-5 block of Trigo will be towed starting on October 26th. There should be signs that will be put up. If you all don't see signs that are put up, let me know, because there should be signs on the streets that cars will get towed. So basically it's in front of the foot patrol station and then at every intersection of Trigo that runs perpendicular to DP. So all of those streets are where the barricades are going to be set up, and that's where cars will also be towed. Just want to keep note, the festival noise ordinance is going to be going on for 2 weekends. So from this weekend until November 4th, that's what the sheriff's office has decided to do, which means that there's going to be no amplified noise from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. And the reason why it is going from both weekends, as they explained to me, is because Halloween is.
Trustee Rose.
Motion to extend speaker time by 3 minutes.
There's a motion to speak 2 more minutes. Is there a second? Things or Dallas around discussion, Senator Rebay, call the question. Question has been called. Is there an objection? Call the question.
Consent.
Is there an objection? Consent. Seeing none, motion passes.
Again, the reason why they did that is because Halloween is on Wednesday, and so there's a possibility of turnout on both weekends. And the other thing that we want to remind people of is to lock the doors, because most of the times when people's houses get broken into, their houses are not locked. It is almost never forced entry. And also record serial numbers of your cars and your laptops, because if your laptops get stolen and you have your serial number to prove it, they can give it back to you. If you don't have your serial number to prove it, they can have your laptop and they're still not going to give it back to you. So those are things to keep track of. You can record your bike with the UCPD and the CSO program. So that's just some of the stuff that we want to remind students of, and that's some of the stuff that's on the postcards that are going to be going out to everyone. And I need questions.
Any questions? Proxy Dillon.
Is there any way that the student body can, in the future, fight these restrictions that the police put on us for 2 weekends?
The reason why it is 2 weekends is because of the circumstance of being on Wednesday.
I understand.
There is a way to fight that, and you can go talk to them. It happens at the sheriff's office, but we can talk about it later if you want to, and I can bring your concerns to them. Yeah.
Senator Mayo.
So, question is on the amplified music. Are they still, okay, so my question is, do you know what the decimal is for amplified music normally? I don't know, it's a very specific question.
Point of information, my boyfriend is playing like music loud on his TV, he got a ticket, so just like, be quiet.
It's across the street.
Yeah.
You can hear it from there. I've got it before. They like to give out the
So you mentioned that there's going to be no re-entry if you leave either DP or Sabado. Is that even if you have a proof of residency?
I think that if you have a proof of residence, I think it's going to depend also on what the circumstances and how, and I think a lot of this kind of will depend on the circumstances of how busy Halloween is. What they've done in the past is they've just blocked off the road. So anytime a car leaves, they block it off and you just can't park on the road anymore. But if you have a driveway or something, they might let you back in. But I think it'll really depend. They've told me that they won't be letting people back in.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you. Next we have Sully.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Sali Muhammad. I am the statewide organizing director for the University of California Student Association. I wanted to come today just to give you all like a preview or snapshot of the kind of work that we'll be doing this year, how that work impacts you, and just some of the ways that you all can help support this work. I know I'm pressing against time, so I'm going to be as swift as possible. You can go to the next one for me. Then one after that. I would tell you about me, but I don't think it's that relevant. A little bit about UCSA. If y'all don't know, UCSB is a significant member of the UC Student Association. UCSA started in the 1960s around the Free Speech Movement, which was an idea for UC students and students in California's higher education system-wide that said that students deserve to have a seat at the table, right? It was the idea of sharing. Right now, tuition is like $1,200, right? And so this idea of shared government should be more impactful today than it was back then, because right now, UC students are the #1 contributor to UC's academic budget, meaning the largest percentage of UC's budget is not coming from the state, it's not coming from all these random sources. The largest portion of UC's operational budget for academics is actually coming from UC students. Yet UC students are the ones who have the least say-so when it comes to the daily decisions that UC is making, right? Other people have seats at the table. Other people have a stake in the game, but students who are the primary financial contributor for the University of California oftentimes are left to the side, right? Oftentimes, nobody comes and asks students, should we raise tuition this year? Nobody asks students, should we change this policy or that policy, right? It's kind of like UC does what it does, and students respond and react, and we believe students should have a seat at the table. And as a result of this, UC Student Association was developed initially as the UC Student Lobby because there was a clear idea that there was no one in the state of California that would lobby specifically on behalf of students.
100%,
Motion to 6 minutes?
That's perfect.
We should give the speaker 6 more minutes. Is there a second standard out for that discussion? Senator Hernandez. Question has been called. Is an objection called a question? Consent. Seeing none, motion passes.
Thank y'all so much. So UC Student Lobby was established as a way, you have police unions have people in Sacramento to advocate for them. Teacher unions have people in Sacramento to advocate for them. There's many different groups that have entities that advocate on their behalf with state legislators, state lawmakers. But students often are some of the most vulnerable folks in the society, and there hasn't been any institution that can ensure that the needs and the voice of students are heard by lawmakers, right? And as you all know, what happens to you all right now, your access to higher education really does determine your life trajectory in a lot of ways, right? And so we wanted to open that up, and that's where the UC Student Lobby came from, and eventually the External Affairs Vice President's Office, or here, your EVP External? Essay, sorry. Your EVP essay, which focuses on doing the work of doing external advocacy. You can go to the next one for me. So that's a little context. Most recently, I like this quote, when we fight, we win. It's actually borrowed from Aspen 3299. Most recently, some of the wins that UCSA has been able to do with the student fees that students put in is we got the first tuition rollbacks in 2018 in like a decade. I remember when I was a student, like 6 years ago, tuition went up 32% consecutively. Housing and food security initiatives, so you might recognize like a food pantry on your campus, or different campuses taking real efforts to make sure there's enough housing. That's a win that UCSA had 2 years ago with a Sustain Our Students campaign. These things are really important because what happens is a lot of times we find the university doesn't move to address student issues if students aren't making noise about those issues, right? So what has happened in the last 10 years in particular is the number of students that UC enrolls increases every single year, but UC isn't increasing the budget allocation to accommodate those students. So you have way more students, same size classroom. Way more students, same size dorm, same number of beds, right? And so the UC literally isn't able to accommodate all the new students that the state is working with UC to bring in. And as a result, students have to really raise your voice and organize your voices in order to actually get like very real, like pressing needs met. And the last one, most recently, is mandatory sexual violence training, which is probably one of the most important ones that we've done. Historically, we've done things like get a student regent, blue and gold opportunity plan, which like anybody that earns under $60,000 has zero estimated family contribution for your tuition costs. And having a student rep in the collective bargaining process, so when unions bargain with the UC, students get to have a seat at the table. Go to the next one for me. How does UCSA work? A lot of folks don't identify like what this is, what it means. UCSA is the Senate of Senates, right? It's the Congress of the Congresses. It kind of is like that collaborative body that works to first hear student voices and amplify that voice, right? So when there's concerns, whether it be food, be housing, be sexual assault, etc., like having a real entity that can raise that voice system-wide. Why? Because the voice of ideas that everybody has to a central place and distribute our resources in order to get a win. And lastly, we develop and institutionalize. What that means is you're a student for 4 years, maybe 5, maybe 6, but ultimately you're going to graduate. And all of the work that you do as a senator, or as president, or as vice president, or whatnot, oftentimes that good work is lost once you graduate, and students aren't able to benefit from that work later on. So we institutionalize by having actual like professional staff that can make sure that the work that the organization does and that the senates do actually can be carried out into fruition afterwards. Next one, please. Santa Barbara, UCSA, I'm short on time, but some things I wanted to offer you all is, A, having UCSA and being a part of UCSA allows for each individual campus to have an amplified voice, where you're not just heard as by folks that are local to the Santa Barbara area, that things that are relevant to students in Santa Barbara often are relevant and relative to students that are not in Santa Barbara, and we can really make that word or those issues heard across the state of California. And in fact, if you may not remember this, but right now the United States is in a real piece around sexual violence, sexual assault, right? A lot of that language and frameworks really erupted out of student organizing and students making demands for changes around Title IX policies, right? That was something UCSA was significant in doing that. So a lot of times you don't recognize it, but as students get more of an impact on the larger political trajectory of the state and of the country than you recognize, and UCSA is at a unique position to do that. Right now we have 4 primary campaigns. The first one is our Racial Justice Now campaign. These are voted on every year at our Student Organizing Summit. Racial Justice Now campaign looks to support ethnic, cultural, and recruitment centers to increase access to students of color to the university. Funds UC this year is looking at improving facilities. Right, again, that idea that UC is admitting a lot more students, but there's not classroom space, there's not dormitory space, etc., being built to accommodate. So that's one of our big pieces this year. Last year, we were able to secure $145 million from the state Senate specifically allocated to deferred maintenance or to improving the facilities. Acquire, which is focused on quality of life. This year, we're focusing on providing resources for undocumented students. And lastly, UC We Vote, which Santa Barbara is historically particularly superb in, and this year our target is to get 100,000 contacts for Get Out the Vote. And that's all right. How you can help? You can support the campaigns. You can connect with the various folks on the EDPSA staffing here. Get Out the Vote is a big deal, as you all know. Prop 10 is particularly significant this year because it has to do with the cost of living, and the cost of living for a lot of students is way too high, at least when I was a student. That's all I have, and I guess I'll take questions if there are any. Oh, there's not time, that's fine too.
Any questions? Senator Senio?
So historically Santa Barbara pays long, UCSA.
Yeah.
And I know just moving forward, what do you feel on as if Santa Barbara didn't put in as much, or how do you feel about that? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So I wasn't there when Santa Barbara made the decision. I wasn't there when Santa Barbara had this disproportionate weight of the fee. One of the things we've already talked about with all the EDPs is looking at increasing the minimum membership due per student system-wide, right? And that would be something that could accommodate a lessened rate from Santa Barbara. In addition, we've also previously worked on and reinitiating what was called the SAGE proposal. That was the idea of doing a flat rate system-wide for all students, that where it would be equal across the board. We are aware of it, we do know it, we do want to change it. It's just a matter of systems and structures and processes and doing it in a way where the organization can survive, but it's also fair and equitable to everybody.
I yield.
Proxy Rose?
I was just wondering where does the UCSA budget come from?
Yeah, UCSA budget comes from student fees. So every member association, so all the EVPs, all the senates, right, or all the student body organizations, however they're organized, there's usually some kind of referendum that has happened in the past. And so a portion of every student's student fees is going to UCSA in order to provide students with the opportunity to have like a real staff and a real organization to advocate on behalf of students.
Senator Hernandez.
How do these campaigns get chosen that you guys have?
Yeah, these campaigns are chosen at our Student Organizing Summit. So every August we bring students from online UCs to come, and it's organizing training. And at the end of the training, folks get to sit in a room and vote on the various campaigns. I encourage you all to come, but it's hyper democratic. Whereas like literally folks sit in a room and they say, racial justice now, we want to focus on this. That's how this comes about.
Follow-up question. Yes. Has there been any like campaigns directed for like transfer students by UCSA?
Not. I've been at UCSA for 6 months, and for the last 6 months, no. I don't know about prior to my time being on the staff, but I think in my opinion, it would be something particularly significant. And with like the Racial Justice Now campaign, we do have a transfer lens because we do know, according to the data, that the highest percentage, there's far greater ratio of students of color entering UC as transfer students than as freshmen. So that's something that we have been looking at though.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Next we have Alex Castello.
Can I get 2 extra minutes, please?
Senator Presenia.
I motion to add 2 minutes.
So there's a motion to add 2 more minutes. Is there a second by Senator Nax? All that discussion, Senator Nellis. Question has been called. Is there an objection to the question?
Consent.
Is there objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes.
Hi everybody, so I guess to kind of direct, so Shelly is the organizing director for UCSA, so questions related to student fees and how campaigns get selected can kind of get directed towards the UCSA office. Regarding transfers, that's actually why I'm up here, so the Racial Justice Now and Acquire campaign, we're actually looking for 2 people to chair that right now. I met some folks with the Undocumented Coalition, and I'm coming to the Senate to ask if you all can share our link for the application because we are the only UC that's behind getting a representative for the Racial Justice Now campaign as well as Acquire. So the faster we get someone, the sooner they can get caught up, particularly because right now undocumented students and undocumented student needs are getting overlooked at the UCSA level, and myself and Madeline are spread relatively thin in being in both of those spaces. So if you could please recommend that to people you know that could apply, who identify them as undocumented, that would really help. For Acquire, that is, for Racial Justice Now, like Sally mentioned, so the way our universities or our campus is structuring the campaign is so being the chair of either of the campaigns allow you to kind of do whatever you want to do in addition to what UCSA is planning on doing. So I'm up here to give that report because, again, in years past, in last year's past, we didn't have a campaign organizing director who was consistently checking in with the Senate because a lot of the campaigns will connect with the things that you do as your individual projects, and my goal is to accelerate that. So regarding the campaigns themselves, the initiatives were definitely driven towards transfer students regarding Racial Justice Now because Santa Barbara's diversity initiatives actually are at a higher rate when it comes to transfers, and so we're really trying to target that community. So if you'd like to partner with us, that would be great. You have my contact info. So that's that. Regarding the elections, we still haven't met the threshold, and our office is starting to get to our nose deep in work regarding requisition forms and things like that. So if you could, I know everyone is talking about the importance of it, but please, if you can share the link to vote and get people out to vote, because if we don't have an EVPSA, then we won't have one for the entire year, and that will be really hard for our office again. So if you could please help us out, campaign as if you're campaigning for yourself, I guess. Everyone's smiling because they know the pain for that. So, yeah, it's not a good feeling. So please, if you could help and make us easier. And then my other report was geared towards on November 15th. We would like for the Senate to attend. The time is still being hashed out with UCOP, but the UC Office of the President's Police Task Force Chair, Alex Bustamante, will be coming to Santa Barbara to hold a town hall regarding UCPD policies around excessive force, around sexual assault, and around police or excessive violence on and off campuses. So Santa Barbara's in a unique situation because we're going to be having IDP Patrol as well as UCPD there. So for off-campus senators, it's really great if you could attend as well as on. So basically everyone in the Senate. And ideally, we would like you to come in attendance because that'll be the time where our campus can advocate for the things that are going on our campuses. And we would like it if you could reach out to your VCUs and have them in attendance as well, particularly public safety, or I can't think of the other VCU, whoever that is, and the Legal Resource Center, because I sit on the committee and there's been a lot of misrepresentation of student need and a lot of oversight and overlook into what our campuses actually need. So the more senators who come, the EVPSA office will be sharing it soon, but November 15th is the day, so if you could please like save the date. I know it's Friday night, so yeah, and that's all I have to say.
Any more questions? Any questions?
I'll be taking questions.
Proxy Rose.
So I, like you said, I understand the importance of filling the role of EVPSA, and I just want to know if you have any other tactics, because it does not appear that the candidate is, you know, active campaigning, if you will, out there in Arbor.
Right.
So what exactly, like, do you have any suggestions of what we can do besides posting a link?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So this working with Madeline alone, like, I'll be frank, like, yes, partisan party politics exists, but I haven't worked with a candidate who has shown their best work in the office, and I wouldn't give my strongest and fullest endorsement to a candidate that's running to see that their work is actually being done. So beyond my own personal endorsement, to whatever extent that means to you all, I don't know, like myself, have to fact check this, if the Senate could pass a resolution or something to that degree, because that's the only thing that I could see. Like, if the Senate were to suggest that Madeline be the acting EVPSA for the year or something to that degree, I don't know if that's possible, but if it was, clearly it's not.
It wouldn't be just to the chair. Did you want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
So it's in the Constitution, so you have to follow the Constitution process.
Okay.
So yeah, the Senate can't override it.
Okay.
But it kind of what you were suggesting earlier, like if everyone just told 3 people in this room, that would create, you know.
Yeah, and that leads to my second point, what Madeline and myself and like everyone in the office is just kind of like, if you ask 5 friends to vote, just in this room alone, like 50 people can vote, 10 people get 5 people to pledge. So if you live in a house in ID, you more than likely have 6 people, so that's easily people to vote. So that's really about it. We don't have anything set in stone. Granted that we have been functioning without one. On our campus, it's been relatively sustainable, but at UCSA spaces, it's not. Particularly because there are things that EVPSAs or EVPs get to vote on that Madeline and myself don't have that jurisdiction to get to do. So there are decisions that are being made, even when it comes to the expense of how much we're paying and to UCSA and things like that. We don't get that. We don't really get a lot of the say-so. So it's been very stagnant, and there's no set tactics beyond like basic grassroots organizing of getting people to go out and vote.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And anyone else here for public forum? Moving on, we have acceptance of agenda. So about the funding request, Maricela suggested that we write a resolution.
Well, did you want me to explain?
Yes.
So you have a resolution, the last resolution you passed, right, has a clause in there that if you're not going to follow the entire resolution, you would want to pick out that clause and say that you want to change that clause, and that could be done by another resolution. Make sense? And the clause reads, you know, that this meeting was to be exclusively for in support of the strike and would only be passing the minutes and I think public forum, which it connotes like no actions. So it would be a quick resolution to override that one clause of the resolution. Make sense?
Yes, that does.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there any way you can do this over email vote?
I wouldn't see why not.
Maricela,
Pardon?
could we do this over email vote after the strike's over?
After the strike is over, yeah, like honor your first honor that resolution and not do it now. You could. That it's yeah. I mean it's another option. Typically, you only want emergency decisions made, and financial decisions are usually not emergencies. Yeah.
The reason, like, why we think that this should be passed as soon as possible is because it is the event is on November 1st, but not only that, they are requesting funding for 3 different performances, the Chumash Elders, Raíces de mi Tierra, and Son Jarocho. Okay. And so usually with contracts like that, they have to be done ahead of time. And just so like people can get their funding, I think we should possibly do a working group, and we break into a working group to write a quick resolution. Thanks, Rose.
Can we give verbal confirmation that we will give them the money and then just pass it once we get something?
I believe this is a time-sensitive thing, so it's better to do it now and get it done over with instead of worry about it later. My recommendation is going to a 10-minute working group. Senator Presenio. Let's move into a 10-minute working group. Is there a second? Second by Senator Hernandez on discussion. Senator Chalon. Question has been called. Is there an objection to the question?
Consent.
Is there an objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. 10 minutes.
I'm ready.
Aye. Or read both the entire thing. Yes.
Yeah.
What is while this is all happening, writing you bring this to her and ask her what's okay. You bring that to her and ask her what's okay. And I'm going to go pee now.
Like divestments are good. We have divestments together this year.
Did you see those emojis? Dude, you should have seen that. You should have seen some of those IDs. There's nothing like that.
It's already written.
She was literally only looking at expiry dates. Yeah.
Because there was yeah.
Are you serious? Oh yeah. That's what you're doing good.
Can you share them?
It's a document.
Okay. Because I couldn't, I was
I was right the rest of the flight over. Not like
you want
It's the little things that go a long way.
You want to be involved.
Wait, who's writing the resolution?
Can you? Do I write it down?
No, I
This is about life now,
Oh, UCSB.
Because like also
We just
No, it wasn't funny, but
things that happen here are like show like other people who don't know what it is
wait, where you guys live? Wait, dude, I live in Steven. I saw Johnny. I saw Johnny. I saw you guys. This is how you guys found. Yeah. What the fuck? I'm gonna come here.
thought that I was that you could all on the same
You all have to say.
Steven wants a photo shoot. I don't want my photo shoot. Ricky wants a photo shoot. What is it?
Generous. You don't want to see the videos in the oh,
Yes. Now we're back.
Don't just be
No, I got a pen.
I wrote like well,
it's funny, I was really
What have you been doing?
yeah, I know. Did you see this? I didn't try to get. I don't know what I need. I don't need it. Text myself that I don't need. We have G and like so all my turns are like it has to be 10 minutes worth of it. I also have I think 2 minutes. No, not by us, my Dude, this guy texted me at 5:57. He goes, "No, send it to me at 6, right?" I was like, "No, 6:30." He's like, "My first one." I was like, "Dude, 6:30 every week." 6:30 every week. The first week I thought it was insane, but after that I did. Because I lived in a shit. When I first got there, like, that's consideration, right? Like, they
and then after that you move to and then you have that consideration. And the first recipient can't do that. So I'm just going to have so if you're trying to do business, move that resolution to meeting consideration. So accept the agenda and then pass the resolution and then accept the
It's very true, that.
So we're trying to put and I called him.
It's just a big heat, right? No way. Oh God. Yeah, it's so
add resolution 10, 21, 18. I'm gonna send this to everyone. Is there 13 here?
13.
Non-senators. I mean, senators.
There's 13 senators.
There's 13 exactly?
3, 4, 5. We have 13.
Okay, no one leave.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Senator Clausen Crew.
Motion to add resolution 10-24-18-21 to new business.
There's a motion to add this resolution to new business. Is there a second? Second by Senator Nelson on discussion. Senator Uribe. Question has been called. Is there objection? Call a question. Objection consent. Seeing none, motion passes. Senator Senio.
Motion to send, motion to move to new business.
There's a motion to suspend the order of the day and move to new business. Is there a second? Second by Senator Chuan. Around discussion. Senator Caneo. Question has been called. Is there an objection? Call a question. Objection consent. Seeing none, motion passes. We have a resolution to override Resolution 1021-18-20 to allow the 69th ASCP Senate to discuss and approve funding requests during their meeting on October 24th. Going to the first, Senator Carlson Crew. Yes, Marcella?
So, I'm sorry, you read that very fast. Did you say a portion of or to override the resolution?
To override a portion.
Okay, that's very, very important. Difference between the whole resolution versus the portion. Okay, good.
Do you want to talk about your resolution?
Yeah.
The second? Do you want to talk about your resolution?
It's a specific resolution to add funding to an org that exists. I yield.
Thank you. The floor is now open. Senator Cordeo.
So just to give a little context, because I feel like our presenters might be in the dark to why we're writing a resolution. Last week we passed 3 resolutions. One of the resolutions was basically stating that we wouldn't be taking actions during this meeting, and basically your funding request requires us to take action. So in order to provide you with funding, we need to override that portion in order to fund or take an action on your funding. So I yield.
Thank you.
The floor is still open. Senator Uribe.
Where's your birthday? So I think I was the second.
Yeah.
And the reason we write this resolution is because the intent of the original resolutions passed was never to cause any sort of like financial burden in terms of students and or student groups. So this is still within the spirit of the 2 resolutions that we passed. And the fact that we're able to be here and convene together in order to allow this funding request to go through and for us to go on it is to be able to, it's what we as associated student and with the intent of like working with the student groups, especially with people like USLAC, being able to have these kind of talks and being able to still allow student groups to do what they need to do. So that's part of the reason why this resolution should exist and should happen, and why we should be voting on this today. It's not going against what we already said, but it's going with it, and it's more affirming what we have said in the past. We're showing consistency with what we said. And with that, I motion to pass this resolution.
You're the second. You can't make a motion on your own resolution.
Oh, okay.
And we have to send it to immediate consideration. Senator Chouan.
Motion to send this resolution to immediate consideration.
There's a motion to send this to immediate consideration. Is there a second? Second by Senator Caneo. Under discussion, Senator Ben Cohen.
Call question.
Question has been called. Is there objection? Call a question.
Consent.
Is there objection? Consent. Seeing none, motion passes. Senator Briceño.
Motion to resume order.
There's a motion to resume the orders of the day. Is there a second? Second by Senator Caneo. Now discussion. Senator Ben Cohen.
Call question.
Question has been called. Is there objection? Call a question.
Consent.
Is there objection? Consent. Seeing none, motion passes. Senator Calder.
Motion to add Mujer funding request to immediate consideration.
There's a motion to add the Mujer funding request to immediate consideration. Is there a second? Second by Senator Corneo. Now discussion. Foxy Rose.
Call question.
Question has been called. Is there objection? Call a question.
Consent.
Is there objection? Consent. Seeing none, motion passes. Senator Briceño.
Motion to accept the agenda.
There's a motion to accept the agenda. Is there a second? Second by Senator Chouan. Under discussion. Senator Corneo.
Question.
Question has been called. Is there objection? Call a question.
Consent.
Is there objection? Consent. Seeing none, motion passes. Okay. We are now. Point of information. Point of information. Yes. For anyone in F and B, do y'all remember what the chair wanted this to come out of? Follow a cell or send an Okay. We are now in immediate consideration. Yes.
Did we have to say how much the funding request was for?
When you make the motion, yes.
Okay, so just how you.
We're now in immediate consideration. We have. Where's the resolution? We have the resolution that we just added. Are you confused, Marisol?
I am. Can the chair restate the motion if you're in a motion?
We are not in a motion.
Okay.
We currently just accept the agenda with the funding request and resolution under immediate consideration.
Okay.
So right now we have the resolution. That's the topic of the.
So that has not been voted.
That has not been voted on.
Got it.
Senator Chouan.
Motion to pass this resolution.
There's been a motion to pass the resolution. Is there a second? Second by Senator Tubian on discussion. Senator Taguchi.
Call question.
Question has been called. Is there an objection? Call the question.
Consent.
Is there objection? Consent. Seeing none, motion passes. We now have the $750 funding request for Mujer. The floor is now open. Proxy Rose.
A motion to fund Mujer $750 out of fall unallocated.
There's a motion to fund Mujer $750 out of fall OSL. Is there a second? Second by Senator Nelson on discussion. Senator Chouan.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there objection? Call the question.
Consent.
Is there objection? Consent. Seeing none, motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Old business, there is none. Recess, I recommend we skip recess. Yeah. Senator Nellis?
Motion to skip.
There's a motion to skip recess. Is there a second? Second, Senator Briceño. Non-discussion. Senator Caneo.
Call a question.
Question has been called. Is there objection? Call a question.
Consent.
Is there objection to consent? Seeing none, motion passes. We have ASC CSP reports. We're not doing any. We're not doing any. Committee reports. Same. Minutes and allocations. We have Senate minutes. Senate 1017. Yeah. Senator Uribe.
Motion to pass Senate minutes 1017.
There's a motion to pass Senate 1017 minutes. Is there a second? Second, Senator Nelson. On discussion. Senator Briceño.
Call a question.
Question has been called. Is there an objection? Call a question.
Consent.
Is there objection? Consent. Seeing none, motion passes. We have administrative committee minutes. There are none. Boards of commissions. We have COSBA 1016, 1023, SCORE 1017, Code 1019, Election Board 1018, EAB 1022, HRB 1015, 1022. Floor is now open. Senator Caneo.
Motion to bundle approval boards and commissions.
There's a motion to bundle approve boards and commissions units. Is there a second? Second by Senator Ben Cohen on discussion. Senator Uribe.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there an objection? Call a question.
Consent.
Is there objection? Consent. Seeing none, motion passes. We have unit minutes, BikeCom 1017-0, Waste 1008, 1015, 1022, CAB 1022, Coastal Fund 1023, TSA 1023, CERC 1023, IVT 1022. The floor is now open. Senator Briceño.
Motion to bundle and approve all unit minutes.
There's a motion to bundle approve unit minutes. Is there a second? Second by Senator Caneo. No discussion. Senator Chawan.
Call question.
Question has been called. Is there an objection? Call the question.
Consent.
Is there consent? Seeing none, motion passes. Standing committee minutes. We have finance and business 1022. Senator Caneo.
Motion to approve finance and business.
There's a motion to approve finance and business 1022. Is there a second? Caneo. Second by Senator Ribe. We're not discussion. Senator Chawan.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there an objection? Call the question.
Consent.
Is there objection? Consent. Seeing none, motion passes. Appointments. We're not doing those. Discussion items. Yeah.
Senator Sullivan wanted to know if we could do that for the appointments, if we maybe put it under the fact that it's like financial thing. I didn't hear the email. Or we can just do email,
We're not doing those. Discussion. We're not doing that. Remarks. Do we want to do remarks? No, we're not doing that either. Adjournment. Senator Benkoe.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Senator Takeuchi. We're not discussion. Senator Briceño.
Call the question.
Question has been called. Is there a objection? Call the question.